We're still waiting around to find out about Dominic Raab's fate after the report into his alleged bullying was given to Rishi Sunak. Now, I'm keen to get your views on this. gbviews@gbnews.uk. It is important, and it's vital, in fact, to say that we don't know what's in this report yet, and nobody does, apart from potentially Rishi Sunak and a handful of other people. And so there is, of course, the possibility that there's going to be some devastating stuff in this thing. There is also the possibility, and I suspect, given the fact that Rishi Sunak hasn't sacked him yet, that would indicate that there's nothing, terminal on page one of this report. Does make me wonder whether or not we actually, as a country, want someone who has a very difficult, very high-pressure job to do with the nation, with a series of crises there. Whether we want someone who bangs a few heads together, and whether or not potentially some younger civil servants, and civil servants have been criticised for not returning to work. The work-from-home culture is large in the civil service, isn't it? Apparently, they've got a very high proportion of them off with long COVID as well. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. So, do we actually want someone a bit like Dominic Raab who isn't afraid to crack on and bang heads together for the sake of the nation? Or, is he a massive bully? A number of officials have accused Raab of bullying them, and he could lose his job. But he's not the only senior politician as well at the moment who's under scrutiny, because Nicola Sturgeon's legacy has crumbled in just a few weeks. Her husband, Peter Morell, and the SNP's former treasurer, Colin Beattie, have both been arrested and later released without charge pending further inquiries. But, as I'm sure you've all seen, it's reported that senior SNP figures fear that Nicola Sturgeon herself could soon be arrested. So right here on today's show, there is the possibility of a Deputy Prime Minister being sacked and a former First Minister of Scotland being arrested. So what a show that would be. But what is going on in politics? Let's zoom out for a minute and have a look at the hot mess that is our political class. Let's get the views of GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Nigel, I always resent introducing you as our senior political commentator because I think that makes you sound a lot older than you actually are. So there you go. But what do you make of it? Let's start with Dominic Raab. OK, look, what do we know so far?
We know that there have been 8 formal complaints against him of bullying. We know that it involves 24 people. We know that a very large report from Adam Tolley Casey, who's been investigating, has gone to Rishi Sunak. And we know that at this moment, Rishi Sunak is working through it and deciding what to do about it. That really is about all we know. We don't know quite what is in the report. We don't know whether it condemns Dominic Raab or exonerates him. And we won't know until Rishi Sunak tells us.
I suspect we'd have a decent idea, though, wouldn't we? Because this report has been on Rishi Sunak's desk, as far as we're aware, since this morning. And, you'd think, wouldn't you, if you turned over page one and it was like, absolutely catastrophic what Dominic Raab has done to some poor civil servant in the office, that he'd be out the door by now. But he's not. But could that actually just be because of how powerful Raab is behind the scenes?
Well, I mean, Raab is an ally of Rishi Sunak's, which is what got him sacked by Liz Truss during her brief premiership. So the last thing Rishi Sunak wants to do is lose Dominic Raab. However, depending what's in the report, he may have no choice. He's talked about that he will run his government with integrity. And if it turns out that Dominic Raab was found guilty of bullying, then he would have to go. In fairness, I mean, Dominic Raab has said himself that if the report actually comes out and proves an allegation against him, he would resign anyway. So really we have to see what happens over the next couple of hours.
Yeah, if he's dealing with a workforce, and just let these numbers sink in, ladies and gents, the number of civil servants who say that they've got long COVID, right? More than 1 in 10 said that they had the condition in autumn 2022, while only 3.3% of the general public said it affected their daily life, right? And there are strong rumblings as to whether or not the civil service is doing a huge amount of work anyway, given the work-from-home culture and the general apathy that there appears to be there. If I was Dominic Raab, and I had a very serious, high-pressure job to do, and it was my neck on the line because the public had to vote me in or out, and 1 in 10 of my staff are, on the old pina coladas and saying that they've got long COVID, I think I'd be inclined to bang a few heads together.
Well, if people are off sick, they're off sick, and one has to take that as legitimate. You're absolutely right about whether or not that these complaints are legitimate, whether in fact Dominic Raab handled his departments professionally, whether he was just a fairly hard taskmaster, or whether or not that crosses over into bullying, which is unacceptable. Until we get a chance to see the report, and we will be allowed to see it, I'm not quite sure when, but apparently it will be published, we won't know the answers to those questions. And you may be right, it may be civil servants have got a bit far, have got a bit upset over some harsh words rather than actual bullying. But we have to see what's actually in the report. Yeah,
indeed. Well, let's just nip north of the border now, because like I said before, this could be a very bizarre day, couldn't it, Nigel, where the Deputy PM is sacked and the former First Minister of Scotland is arrested. How likely is it? What do we know? I mean, there are strong rumblings about it. Apparently, SNP officials reportedly are fearful that Nicola Sturgeon could be arrested.
Yes, I mean, that's about all we do know. I mean, obviously a process is going on. Nobody has so far been charged with anything. The police are continuing their investigation. But yes, as the investigation continues, it is possible that at any point, Nicola Sturgeon could have her collar felt. I mean, certainly the SNP is in the biggest crisis of its history. They can't even find any new accountants after the last lot resigned. So it's a difficult time for them. But again, this is part of a process, and we'll have to see how it pans out.
Yeah, Nigel, thank you. I love the idea of the level of accountant that the SNP is going to have to get next. It's going to be someone in a smoke-filled room with an ashtray. Like, I'll do your accounts. Yeah, of course I will. Nigel, thank you. Nigel Nelson, GB News' senior political commentator. Right, now...